Next up is a philosopher who fills stadiums. His justice lectures are legendary. And what's fascinating about what he's going to do here today is to hold up a mirror to ourselves. It's going to be an interactive session, so I would suggest everyone tighten your seatbelts. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Michael Sandel on stage.
I've been listening, and what strikes me about the discussion so far is that talk about tech prompts a certain breathlessness. Everything is accelerating. Things are moving faster. We don't have enough time. There's too much to do. Now, this breathlessness reveals not so much something about the science, it seems to me. It reveals a certain anxiety that technology prompts. Anxiety is philosophically interesting. Why the anxiety about AI and chatbots and new technology? We worry that robots are coming for our jobs. We worry that AI might deepen inequality. We worry that surveillance capitalism means that privacy is over. We worry that misinformation and deep fakes and toxic social media are destroying democracy. So there's plenty to worry about. But beyond these familiar worries, it seems to me there's a deeper anxiety about AI and about tech. And the anxiety is about whether technology will change what it means to be human. That's the anxiety I would like to explore with you. There are now AI-empowered robots. There's a company already marketing them that are offered up. The company describes it as an AI sidekick for happier, healthier aging. The question I'd like you to think about, and we'll get your thoughts, is whether, once I show you a few testimonials about the advantages of the companionate robot, whether you might like to acquire one for an elderly, lonely loved one. Let's look at the first clip, and then we'll see what you think.
Good morning, Juanita. How are you today?
I talk to LQ like she's a friend. LQ is interested in my feelings and wants to know if I slept well.
Let's try and focus on breathing with our stomach.
We do this stress reduction exercise quite a few times during the day. She's helped me a lot with not feeling lonely, because it's like a little person that I talk to all the time. She tells jokes. I don't ask her for jokes. She just, I have a joke, do you want to hear it?
I've asked LQ to tell me a joke, and then I've been known to repeat it at dinner.
She's funny. LQ, thank you for being my friend.
Thank you for being my friend too.
LQ reminds me that I should do my blood pressure check.
It's 3 p.m. in time to check your blood pressure.
I would tell everybody to be crazy not trying to get something like to help you.
I just think it's nice to know that LQ is here.
She does know when I'm a little sad. She said, you didn't sleep well today. So that's empathy.
That's empathy. Now, by a show of hands, if you have a loved one, maybe an elderly relative who's lonely, who needs companionship, how many would be tempted to get them a companionate robot like this one? And how many would not? Let's see by a show of hands. Can we turn the lights up in the hall a little bit? All right. How many would? How many would like to? And how many would not? This is a pretty even division of opinion here. It's almost equally divided. So let's begin the discussion first by hearing from someone who would not get this companionate robot for a loved one. What would be your reason?
I don't think the elder person would be able to make eye contact.
Eye contact.
I don't think there
The
would
robot. Well, the robot doesn't have eyes.
Yes. So I think that would be missing. I think a smile would be missing, and I think touch would be missing.
So eyes, smile, and touch. Now, the robot we saw, it does not have eyes, doesn't smile, and doesn't touch. But what about the fact that the women who were speaking about the robot said, it makes me smile. It's like a friend. Hold on to that microphone because I want to hear from someone who would get the robot for a loved one and see whether you have a reply. Who would? You would get the robot.
I would.
Yes. Okay. And how do you reply to this worry?
I say to the naysayers, it's not a binary world. When I, as a senior, I get moved by watching a movie. The best and the worst of emotions in me could be elicited out of a book. It could be out of a movie. And therefore, it's not a binary choice of a human versus a non-human. Anything, any force that can get a sense of a positive emotion out of me is welcome.
And the women speaking seem to derive a positive emotional feeling from this robot.
There you are.
And so that would be, well, wait, stay there. Let's have a reply from where? Do you still have the microphone? Stand up again. Tell us your name.
Nishi. Nishi.
Nishi. Nishi, and tell us your name.
My name is Sunil. S-U-N-I-L, Sunil.
Sunil. Sunil. What do you say to Sunil?
I beg your pardon, Sunil. I think I was momentarily lost in my thoughts, so I missed what you said. I'm sorry.
Well, let me just summarize. The gist of it is that it creates a positive emotional feeling and response from the women. We saw them describe it, right, Sunil? Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, why insist on eyes?
If it was my parents, I think I would try and ensure
Right.
that I was able to give the personal contact.
Right.
However, I do respect a situation where a person may not be able to give that.
Okay.
And in that case, they do want their parent to be happy. They
Right.
do want the elderly person to be happy. So then why deny them that pleasure if they are not able to bring themselves into the situation and give the personal touch?
We've only just begun the discussion of whether tech will change what it means to be human. We're going to continue this discussion now in dialogue with Shoma, and what remains for us to figure out, Shoma, building on the points that have been raised in these discussions about the companionate robot to combat loneliness. What remains to be seen is what is at stake in the anxiety we have that in domains of companionship, friendship, and love, AI may miss something important about what it means to be human. Thank you for getting us started on this discussion, which now we'll have to figure out what lies behind the insights that people have raised. Shoma.
So a great entry point into that, Michael, was this idea of objectivity and bias that everyone spoke about.
Yes.
And, before even going into whether AI itself is biased, which, it clearly is. So there's sense that, AI is objective because it's a machine is a misconception. But even more importantly, I would love to ask you that, are we raising an altar to objectivity? Because so much of human decision making, for the good as well as for bad, is subjectivity. My question to you then would be, isn't subjectivity a very important part of being human? And bias is a part of that subjectivity.
So you're suggesting that maybe bias has its virtues, which is a counterintuitive idea. We think of bias as a bad thing. You've made two really interesting reasons to wonder about this. Thinking about the AI in hiring, let's say, or in performance evaluation. It's certainly true that even the best algorithmic prediction predicts against the background of past behavior. That's what the data consists in. But that means that the past behavior may be shot through with bias, with unfairness, which would be replicated, maybe amplified, if it's given the status, the veneer of being something objective. Now, with machine learning, those who argue in favor of hiring, let's say, through machine learning will say, all we're doing is saying, here are our best performing employees. Run the app and bring us more of them. You're not even identifying the qualities that make them your best performers. You're just asking the machine to discover patterns. And you're right, that could replicate the biases of past hiring practices. But then you made a further suggestion, which I find intriguing, about bias. Apart from the objectivity worry, maybe there is something in bias that's important. And I think you're getting at it when you use this term liminal. So let's talk about that a little bit. What do you mean when you suggest the importance of the liminal in human experience?
Yes. We've been talking about this huge structures of machines and data.
Right.
Which, as Eric put it very memorably, it's really stayed in my brain that we now need to move towards computational thinking. And we see that that's what machines make you do,
Yeah.
So before I come to the word liminal,
Yeah.
I just want, you typically think of bias as being a negative word.
Yeah.
But why I said that this subjectivity is a very important part of being human
Right.
is that, for instance, my bias may be to hire people who are mavericks, They may be people who don't fit a system,
Right.
who don't fit a pattern, the outliers,
Right.
the non-fitters.
Right.
I shared with you earlier that in my earlier career as as sort of leading as a managing editor or, setting up journalistic teams, I, for my purposes, never looked at CVs, never looked at the past accomplishments of people.
Right.
I hired on the basis of a chemistry, and I know this is going to sound weird, but just the way people look in their eyes.
Yeah.
That was my bias of how
Right.
I hire.
Right.
But that's very intrinsic to who I am as a person.
Right.
Now, if I give that over to a machine, the machine will do, it'll kind of eliminate people who may just be that wonderful individualistic discovery. So that's why I'm saying that.
So maverick, idiosyncrasy, these can be part of creativity, creative leadership. The image of the eyes, you said you look into the eyes of the people you're interviewing. And the image of the eyes came up also in the worry about the companionate robot, which is intriguing. Now, they could, I'm sure, listening to the objection, the company could say, all right, we'll fix that. We'll create AI moving eyes for this machine. And we'll even replicate a smile on the machine, if that's the worry. But eyes, do you have a hunch that even AI-empowered eyes on a robot would not enable the eye contact that you described?
Michael, you know, 1 week ago I would have answered you differently.
Yeah.
My mind is quite contrary to the creative panel where the most accomplished directors and creators were not at all perturbed by Sora.
Yeah.
My mind has been blown by Sora. You know,
Right.
I don't know if you saw the images that we were showing in that session, but there are faces there with such minute micro expressions, you know, a twitch of the cheek, a sadness in the eyes, and that's not real, you know. That's
It's not real.
So
It's not real.
I mean, I actually haven't wrapped my head around it. I don't know how to
Right.
think about it, because if machines can generate that,
Yes.
and it's not real,
Yes.
I don't know how to relate to reality anymore, you know?
Well, you said that's not real, which suggests what the deepest stakes here really are, which is whether AI is already and will soon deprive us of the distinction, will efface the distinction between what's fake and what's real, between what's virtual human contact and responsiveness, and what's actual, between the virtual and the actual, which raises, I think this is the deepest source of the anxiety and the legitimate anxieties about AI, beyond jobs, beyond deep fakes, beyond misinformation, beyond the loss of privacy. Are we losing the distinction or the ability to distinguish between what's real and between what's fake and what's real? And what's at stake if we do? Suppose the women who have the robot really do derive positive emotional responses. Though the robot can't really smile, it prompts a smile in them. They feel it to be real, even though we know it's not. There's a pathos in that.
Yep.
The liminal points to a pathos in being seduced by what's virtual and what's fake. But so this is really at the heart of it. What's at stake if we become indifferent to the line between a convincing fake and what's real and what's true? What's the difference?
Just, you know, this question, and the person who said that, what if I feel good
Yes.
talking to a machine? You know,
Yeah.
I get companionship, I get laughter, I get
Right.
friendship. you
Right.
know. I find that very interesting, because and that's a word that one has like come up several times. I've used it, others have used it. Daniel Susskind definitely makes that point, that the approximation is powerful enough, you know.
But does that argue for or against trying to perfect the virtual and to substitute it, or to be indifferent if it's substituted for what's real? Or does it suggest that the machines, the AI, and the virtual reality are doubling down on illusions that themselves we strive to overcome? The women who were taken with the robot were describing this as a friend. Now, what that misses is that a friend or an interlocutor doesn't just reflect back to me as if a mirror what I already think or want or desire. The friend may challenge, dislodge, lead me to reflect and to reconsider what I already want. And so maybe that's one of the dangers of relying on these devices as if they were somehow persons.
I do want to just end with one thing, that when we're talking about transparency, I think you touched upon something very important, which is that these huge structures, and it's pervading our lives on everything, like on health, seemingly innocuous things, health data, mostly on health, education, what we buy, which flight you're catching, etc. All of us are now uploaded on the digital world, and we're going to have some national security chiefs talking to us tomorrow, and they said, frankly, if I want to know what you had for breakfast yesterday, I know it, That part really worries me, Michael, because for all the good that it's yielding, I think that level of transparency is going to create a very authoritarian and a very compliant society, I think the whole point of being human is that you have that power to resist, to be irrational, to be, to not fit in. But I think this level of transparency and surveillance is turning us into a very docile society, because it's just too large.
Well, maybe then what we're gesturing toward is the idea of keeping transparency in its place and not making it the ultimate ideal, but also reining in the project of self-mastery, which is really what technology is. Technology is not so much about the science. I mean, that's a condition of it. But technology is a stance toward the world and toward ourselves. It's an attitude. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of aspiring. And the question is whether the aspiration it reflects, the Promethean aspiration, to make ourselves self-made and self-sufficient, is that ultimately, humanly satisfying? My argument is no, it's a misdirected ideal, because what it misses, and we've found various ways of gesturing toward what it misses, whether friction or mystery, is what it misses is the fallibility and the vulnerability of what it is to be human. And the moral stance that requires is humility. And humility is a virtue that in our highly polarized, high-tech age, we desperately need. Humility is the civic virtue we need, I think, to heal the excesses of our technocratic conceits and also to heal the deep polarization that afflicts our public life.
And thank you very, very much, Michael, for opening our minds on all of this.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Wonderful. Great job.